Since 1900, the hillbilly stereotype has developed and mutated into something entirely different. How did these changes come about, and with the decline in racial discrimination, is society looking for a new lower class? The following images are screen caps from an advertising campaign for Hillbilly Hooch, an apple pie flavoured spirit. As you can see, the campaign employs heavy stereotyping in order to link their product with society's interpretation of the hillbilly lifestyle. They are playing on the wholesome, family-orientated lifestyle associated with the Deep South, while simultaneously playing up to gender roles and preconceptions about the people we now know as rednecks, white trash, or hicks. First of all, we have the home. The cartoon house is drawn with much attention to detail. There is an outhouse toilet complete with a moon-shaped peephole, rubbish strewn everywhere, and the house itself looks old and unstable. The overall impression is of a home that is lived in but not cared for, and suggests a lack of money and cleanliness. Then there are the two women in the cartoon. We have the older grandmotherly figure with her vacant, toothless expression and shabby clothes, whose image seems to be a nod towards the traditional idea that women's roles are in the kitchen. The younger female is an interesting contrast. She too has a vacant expression, but is wearing extremely small, tight, revealing clothes. She is, in short, a sexual figure, and this uncomfortably sums up the way society groups uneducated American women from certain areas. They are either mothers whose main role in life is to cook, or cheaply and provocatively sexual. The male character in the cartoon is also predictable. Once again, there is the vacant, slightly drunk expression. He is shabbily dressed, elderly, and is concocting alcohol in his barn, a typical activity that hillbillies are imagined to partake in even in our post-prohibition era. He is accompanied by a dog that seems to be on the same intellectual level as him, if not higher. While this is a light-hearted advertising campaign, it is an interesting example of the way people imagine hillbillies to be, and also points out some important factors we will be discussing further on in this visual essay. For example, how did the stereotypical redneck woman go from elderly and motherly to sexual and vacant? Furthermore, are activities such as homebrewing alcohol and agriculture still synonymous with the hillbilly culture? But before we can observe modern hillbilly culture, however, it is important to look at how the hillbilly came about. According to Dr. Barry von Aaron, the original Appalachian settlers came to America from the lowlands of Scotland and Ireland. After years of fighting repression, they did not feel they could settle with the English in New England. They were the very people who had battled them for so long. So they settled along the Appalachian mountain range. Aaron Van explains in the simplistic terms why he thinks rednecks, hillbillies, and the like shun traditional lifestyles with their traditional expectations and laws. Do we have in this part of the country a strong love of central government? Do we believe that when we've got a problem, we call up the government to fix it? Now, where do you suppose that comes from? It comes from our ancestors. However, the hillbilly stereotype was consolidated on a deeper level, claims Hawkins, when the Great Depression hit in October of 1929. Most lost their jobs in droves and took to the roads to seek out work. These jobs were few and far between, and so groups of bedraggled, dirty families shooting wild animals and numbing the pain of their plight with alcohol became commonplace outside American cities. Even after the US recovered, this style of self-sufficient country living had become normal, and so the stereotypically alcoholic, poor, occasionally violent family became a known stereotype. Television, print media, cinema, and the internet have just kept it alive and allowed it to develop, so that hillbillies today are just as frowned upon and isolated by the supposedly upper classes. While some aspects of their lifestyle have changed, there are many things that have stayed the same.
Over the course of the 20th century, the term hillbilly has become less and less tied to the mounted people it originally described, and other terms, such as redneck and white trash, have become more and more associated with the hillbilly, until today, when they are all generally applicable as a description for lower-class white America. As we can see in this character from the American cartoon The Simpsons, stereotypes of unseemliness and ugliness are pervasive. His unkempt, unclean appearance, with a stubbly face, bad teeth, and drooping eyes, suggesting at a lack of civility and dignity, and a tattoo on his arm, suggesting at a rebelliousness associated with the groups we've been discussing. As the term redneck generally implies that kind of social backwardness, someone opposed to modernity in all its forms, that some American Southerners have embraced the term with pride has led them to being often seen as bigoted or racist. Being a redneck, or a hillbilly to a lesser extent, also carries connotations of aggressive republicanism and a sense of hostility towards the political left. Famous Southern actor, comedian, and redneck Daniel Lawrence Whitney, aka Larry the Cable Guy, can be seen here in a comedic yet suggestive poster, with the play on words, the right to bear arms, referencing gun laws in the country. In this clip from his stand-up show, we see him mocking politically correct attitudes typically associated with the left.
I'm Larry the Cable Guy, and I've got something here that takes a huge bite out of my hind end. My little niece brought home the other day this book full of fairy tales. It's been all politically corrected up. That's right. Now in this country, I guess fairy tales are offensive for the kids. So I'd like to read one for you now. It's the story formerly known as Little Red Riding Hood. It's now called Vertically Challenged Native American Riding Hood and the Endangered Wolf.
This mocking attitude here is clearly light-hearted, but it only serves to verify existing stereotypes about the politicisation of the hillbilly and redneck. The Confederate flag, as we briefly saw earlier, often renamed the redneck rebel flag, has also been embraced by many lower working-class whites in an attempt to reclaim their southern pride, in spite of the flag's controversial past being associated with both the Civil War and slavery. The term white trash, or trailer trash, is of course instantly more derisive and insulting than the other terms, and has therefore remained generally solely in the category of a slur. The term connotes both immorality and dirtiness, both of which have a history with the terms hillbilly and redneck. The implication of uncleanliness, in Freud's terms, in his Civilization and Discontents, has instant connotations with incivility. As he says, dirtiness of any kind seems to us incompatible with civilization. This arguably explains why this continually excluded group of Americans are so associated with uncleanliness. These stereotypes that have been constructed over the last century have contributed to an image of lower-class white America have come in many ways to help define what exactly it means to be white, if only through an imagined bad example. Anthony Harkins, in his book Race, Class, Popular Culture and the Hillbilly, describes the stereotype as an enduring one. As the white other of society, the hillbilly has arguably taken the place of other more prominent and once more loudly circulated racial and ethnic stereotypes. There is an association of savagery with the hillbillies that we will look at again in the last section of this essay, that harkens to the way that Native Americans and African Americans have been portrayed throughout American history, and the apparent unending need for that savage section of society to fulfill the old civilized savage binary that has defined much of the American mindset.
Since the early 20th century, popular culture has had many chances to laugh at the hillbilly in its various portrayals. However, though these comical icons did enforce prejudice and negative stereotypes, it could be the film Deliverance that has had the most lasting effect. This clip from the 1972 hit Deliverance, directed by John Borman, shows hillbillies to be uneducated, twisted, incestuous beings who loathe the outside world and will not allow it to merge with their own. This presentation of hillbilly culture, one far removed from the comical version seen before, made the divide between a hillbilly and the middle-class white man even bigger. Even in the 21st century, we see hillbillies mocked by those who should know better.
Okay?
You what?
I ain't trying to come totally between Ashley and Lil Wayne, okay? Cause now, if he ain't got to leave the train.
You don't want to come between Ashley and Lil Wayne?
Totally, you know.
Yeah.
He ain't got to leave the trailer. He can stay there. But now, if they gonna be doing it, he gonna have to give me my money, cause you know.
Oh, whoa!
In the clip, we see Jerry Springer, a well-off and well-educated man, goading a hillbilly for the delight of his audience. This behaviour would be likely deemed unacceptable if the person under observation was from a different ethnic group. Anthony Hawkins, in Hillbilly, A Cultural History of an American Icon, says people feel allowed to laugh at hillbillies as they are white and similar enough to the respected white man for it to be okay and not racist. Hawkins says it is the whiteness of the hillbilly that has helped the icon survive. The values in hillbilly culture seem to be idealistic, from a reality that is not familiar. They include having a good time with the family, spending time outdoors, enjoying what money cannot buy, and not answering to anybody. Freud's Civilization and its Discontents says that the individual wants their desires met, but society makes them conform and give these desires up. It seems the hillbilly has put faith in their desires, rather than lead a mundane life as part of society. White middle-class values seem to differ from hillbilly values. A white man would stereotypically put value on his job, his wife, house, and his commercial and material possessions. Eric Klopp says that though the US says that it is the land of opportunity, and there is the idea of the American dream, and it says that class does not matter. The reality is that there is a huge class divide in America, and the hillbillies and white middle class people demonstrate this and show different ends of the spectrum. Though popular culture has sexualized the hillbilly woman in order to sell, the reality is that a hillbilly woman leads a strenuous life. Whereas in most of the Western world, women now have their own lives, jobs, etc., hillbilly women are often kept cooking, cleaning and mothering. However, with the world continuously getting smaller, the question for how long can hillbillies keep up their harmonious and undisturbed lifestyle is one that must be answered soon.